So if you have already deployed your website to a server and you now want to allow client access to your server, you have to give them an address that they can communicate to. Typically, this could be the IPv4 address of your server, and the client can directly contact your server using that address. But IPv4 addresses are random numbers, not very intuitive and not very easy to remember. So what we want instead is to use a domain name or a host name for our server, something like sohaibaftab.online for my portfolio. This is the idea of domain name system. Okay, and we have to get into a bit of theory to understand how these work, and then we will see how we can actually apply that understanding to actually map a domain name to our own server. And instead of having to type in 13 something 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 to visit my portfolio, anyone can just type in sohaibaftab.online and see my portfolio. So getting on with it, we have to get to the management panel. I'm using the hosting panel here, but we will have enough understanding after this video to be able to apply it to any panel of your choice, So you can use GoDaddy or any other platform that you prefer. We are only bothered with the name server configuration of our domain. Okay, so to begin with, what are name servers? This is where a bit of theory will come in, and we will see this diagram on Excalitron. So clients or any user would like to connect to your server. It will send your server a request and the server will give it an appropriate response. How is this possible? If your client can uniquely identify your server on the internet, this is possible. And how can the server be uniquely identified? By a unique IP address. Every device on the internet has a unique IP address. Okay, but if you do not want your client to use the IP address to access your server, which is of course inconvenient, then you would want to use something like a domain name. But your server does not inherently have a domain name, so your server does not own sohaibaftab.online, okay, and your client cannot know that sohaibaftab.online belongs to this server. Then somebody on the internet has to manage this information that this server, the owner of this server, has bought this domain name and wants to map this domain name to this server, basically to map this domain name to this IP address. And who will be the guy to manage that? The domain name system name server, DNS name server. Each information field like this is called a DNS record, that this domain name maps to this IP address. This is called a DNS record, and DNS name servers manage many such records. So there is a hierarchy to DNS name servers that we would not like to discuss here. Plus, this process is also not exactly how it works. It has two approaches, one iterative, one recursive. It's a bit more complicated than what I'm showing here, but this is enough for us to understand broadly how it works and to be able to actually configure our domain. So what the client does instead, it wants to access sohaibaftab.online, so it will ask the name server, okay, whose address is this? sohaibaftab.online belongs to which server? And the DNS name server will return the IP address. Now the client can access the server and get the appropriate response. Okay, so these records that we just talked about, there are many types of records that the DNS name server holds. We will discuss every type of record, not every type of record, some of the records one by one, some that are relevant to our use. Okay, coming back to the panel, we have first of all a type A record. If you click here, you will see all the different types of records, but we are only bothered with the type A record. What is asterisk? Asterisk is nothing but a short form of my domain name. So if I type sohaibaftab.online, you see it automatically replaces it with an @. So this is just a shorthand for the entire domain name, and points to will be the IP address of my server. So if it belongs to 123.172.168.123.11, then if I map this, then it will say that okay, sohaibaftab.online belongs to this IP address. It will forward the request to this IP address. And TTL is the time to live. We will get back to TTL in a while when we discuss CNAME records. Okay, so I'll not add this record here because I already have a type A record. See, this type A record says that the sohaibaftab.online domain belongs to, points to this IP address. Okay, and it has a TTL of 1400. The other kind of record that we want to discuss is a CNAME record. What is a CNAME record? Canonical name or aliasing record. It is basically used to add aliases to your website. So if we check here, are we actually able to go to sohaibaftab.online? Yes, it totally works. We are able to reach sohaibaftab.online and view my website. Works. Wonderful. But the industry standard, as you would know, is to use www.sohevaplab.online. Does that work? Yes, that works as well. How does that work? Because I have added this CNAME record which says add www before sohevaplab.online and then point it to sohevaplab.online. So it is basically saying that, let's come back to Excalibur. It is basically saying that www.sohevaplab.online is an alias, like just another name for the original domain name, that is sohevaplab.online. Okay, here comes TTL. TTL is basically time to live, and it tells how long this information will stay on a local server. So what actually happens is, see, the client wants to request that DNS name server for this domain's IP address. But this is very expensive, because imagine if you are accessing the same website again and again and again, you do not want to bother the DNS name server every second, right? What you would rather do is you will introduce a local server that catches this information that we just had. It will cache it, okay? And now for some time the client can directly talk to the local server and get the response back for the IP address. Notice that I said for some time. How long? That is decided by the time to live. So if we have a time to live of 300, then the domain name server will send a record that will last on the local server for 300 seconds or 5 minutes. Until 5 minutes, the client will not communicate with the DNS name server again. So imagine if we are to change this points to detail to /blogs, sohevaplab.online/blogs, and now we update it. And if I try to go to the website again, see, it does not redirect me to sohevaplab.online/blogs. It redirects me to the home page, which was the older record. Okay, the older record. That is because this update has not occurred in the local server, local DNS server that my computer is on. It depends on the network you are on. Okay, so until that local server has this change updated, you cannot access this new mapping. Okay, you do not have access to this new mapping. You cannot know. Now imagine this change has been updated to the local DNS server. Will I actually be able to access this URL using this alias? No, because this is a two-part process. You cannot just configure your Hostinger panel, and the domain name will start mapping to your server and your server will start accepting requests. No, you also have to make changes to your Nginx or Apache configuration and ask it to accept requests made to sohevaplab.online or www.sohevaplab.online and return it this home page. So it is a two-step process. This is step 1 of the process. One thing I'd like to show you is that because my IP is configured properly, like my Nginx is configured properly, if I'm sending a request to this IP address, although this belongs to my server does not return me a web page. It gives me this error. See, Nginx gives me this error because Nginx is configured to only accept requests made to this domain name that I own. Okay, so that will be all for this video. We will maybe discuss the Nginx configuration in a future video. Thank you.